Earlier today, somebody asked a great question about the abstract class video that I did a couple days ago. So I wanted to answer it right here because I think the answer is going to apply not just for abstract classes, but anybody writing C# code. If you're not kind of feeling like an expert level, then this might come in really, really handy. So the question was, okay, cool, but what'll happen if we have an AoE spell that has no target, but simply puts to the ground like a Nova spell? And this is in reference to the abilities that I was showing off, where you could click and damage or heal or do whatever you wanted by using an abstract class with a scriptable object that had a use method that took an owner and a target. And it says here, these are all for target-based spells, so do we simply nullify the target in the parameter? And if we have different targets with the heal ability but a different heal amount, should we create a new scriptable object for those enemy types? It's a great question, and the answer to that is no, you shouldn't create a new scriptable object, and you probably also shouldn't just create a bigger scriptable object with a bunch of optional parameters. Instead, what I would recommend for most games is to create some parameter that you're going to pass in. For this example, I've created an ability target. Here's my character ability class with the abstract use method, and it's changed my target type from being a server character over to being an ability target. An ability target's just a struct that has a server character option there and also has a location. Now you might be wondering why create a struct that's got multiple things in it. Why not just have optional parameters and pass those? I could do like a target that's a character and then an optional vector3 location that's maybe null by default or something, or we could do something like that, or maybe have different types of use methods. And the main reason is that when you're building these things up, as the question continued on asking about, you come into these scenarios where you don't want to just target one thing. You don't want to just target a single place and a single location. Sometimes you want to target a group member and an enemy. Sometimes you want to target 3 enemies and one ally or one random inanimate object. So if you just have a struct here that allows you to take any different type of object or pass in any extra type of thing, it makes it much, much easier to just build your abilities and then have them deal with how they want to do different targets from the beginning. Now, when it comes to AoEs, there is a little bit extra to add on there. When we looked at the AoEs in the last setup, it was actually done in the character ability where it was picking out all of the targets. If you're going to have a multitude of character or of abilities that have an AoE type versus a single target type versus like a nearest target type, then I would consider refactoring that out into a separate little mini system that's a targeting system that selects the valid ability or the valid targets for your ability. It really comes down to whether or not you're going to have that many complex abilities that are going to be going back and forth. If you're going to have a dozen abilities in your game, targeting system probably doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're going to put 100 abilities in your game, then you probably want to set up something really simple where you can add ability targeting types to an ability. Maybe it's just a field that's the targeting type that specifies how it picks targets, whether it's AoE, whether it's whatever one you want to pick. AoE single target, maybe defensive, maybe it's multiple shift click targets. If you want to allow that, you put that into a separate targeting system. So let's see this in action real quick. And then we'll look at the code for how the ability target pulls this stuff. Again, it's pretty simple, hopefully pretty straightforward. Let's jump over to Unity. Here we are. I'm going to log in. I will pick my warrior Denise, and not my badly named cleric. Walk around over here, click my teleport ability, and then start teleporting to wherever I want on the ground. And click on my AoE attack, and I can click on the enemy. Should be able to click on him and cause damage. But I can also click on the area around him and cause damage. Or if I click around myself, cause damage to me. If I go spawn a bunch of enemies, let's just go find that NPC spawner here. Go to the NPC spawn point, hit that mass spawn, get a nice 100 enemies. I can just run around and click on the ground, and you can see I can damage all the things around them. Pretty simple. It just hits everybody, and I can teleport by clicking around. So how is it working? How does it get those locations? Well, if you're pretty advanced, go ahead and put a guess into the into the comments. I'm curious if you can figure out if you already know how it works. And if you don't know how it works, then don't worry, I'm going to show you right now. So jump back into the code. And if I want to find out and say I wanted to dissect this code, I can see that it's got 5 overrides where it's using this use method, or I could start looking for places that this ability target's used. Let's go through and just pretend that I have no idea what I'm looking at and reverse engineer it. We'll hit Shift F12 on the use method, and that's going to give me all of the references down below. If that doesn't work for you, you can right click and hit find usages, and that should pop it up. Now this will work in Rider, Visual Studio, VS Code, pretty much anything. It's going to be similar. Your hotkey just might be different, so look for it if you right click. Now I can see down here there are 2 spots where use is called. One is right here, which is in this usability method that takes a clicked character. So when my game player clicks a character, I call usability and call this one right here usability with a character, which calls ability.use, passes in the owner, which is always going to be the same. It's going to be the thing that's calling it, at least in my scenario. And then it creates a new ability target and just fills in the character. On the ones where I want to do a location, so I've clicked on the ground, I call this method usability, just passing in the raycast info. And then we call ability.use, create a new ability target, and pass in a location. So how does the ability know which one to use? Well, in my AoE ability, let's see, character ability AoE attack, it actually just defaults to trying to use the position of the character. So if I've clicked on a character specifically, it'll try to use that one. And if not, then it will fall back to using a location. Now there is a bug here. If you know what the bug is, what would happen if I clicked nothing? So say I didn't give it a valid location. So I passed in the default value and I didn't click on a character. If you know, just drop it in the comments. I assume a lot of people are going to know, but I'm curious to see how many people get it and how quick people get it. And if you don't know, it's a good thing to check down there and see it. So we get that position, and then I just do my overlap sphere on that position, get all the distinct colliders in range, and then make them take damage. Again, if you wanted to do this in a bigger setup, I would consider moving this out into a targeting system, but only if you're going to have, I would say maybe like 24 or so spells. You're going to have a setup where you've got a variety of things and they can be targeted, like the different spells that can be reused multiple ways. If all you're going to have for AoEs is an attack, then it doesn't make any sense to set up a whole targeting system for that. It's relatively pointless. But if you're going to have everything be able to do everything, then you might want to consider splitting that out. But that's all there is to it. So when you're looking at methods, if you've got, I would say, more than 2 parameters, you've got 3 parameters, start considering whether or not some of those parameters should be structs or other things that you're passing in. And if you have more than 3, you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, definitely start looking at things that you can pass in. That was a mistake I used to make a long time ago when I realized I could just do optional parameters. I had methods with like 30 optional parameters at one point, and it seems neat, it seems cool and super easy, just keep adding more and more and more. It becomes a nightmare to maintain and deal with. Having a single struct where I can just go add and remove stuff, or maybe multiple depending on the size of the data that's going around, makes it much, much easier. So go ahead and use them. If you like that, please drop a thumbs up and subscribe and all that stuff, and leave a comment. If not, then well, do the same and just wait for the next video. All right, see you later. Oh, before I go, Story keeps telling me that I need to market my stuff better, so I may as well mention it right now. If you're interested in multiplayer game development, make sure you check out the Multiplayer Mastery course. There's a link down below in the description. We're getting into some pretty advanced multiplayer concepts. The first half is done, where we go over peer-to-peer game development, where you build a multiplayer racing game. Once it's done, there's one lesson left coming this weekend, but it's done other than that, and then we're moving on from the peer-to-peer game where you set up a game, create a lobby, use the relay service, use some of the cloud save setup, and then do peer-to-peer racing, kind of like the old RC cars. In the next project, we're doing a dedicated server extraction game that's kind of RPG, or maybe I should say fantasy-based. Have a cleric, a warrior, a ranger, and a cleric, warrior, ranger, and a mage, and run around, get in the level, go do your spells, kill everything that you can, try to grab as much loot with inventory. We're going to add trading as a request from one of the students, and lots of other really fun systems. We're using Unity as netcode for game objects. It's finally at a point where I think it's good, stable, and totally usable, and I'm not too worried about them deprecating it like the old ones. So I think it's a good option. It's really powerful. And if you're interested in multiplayer development, we go over all of the stuff that you need to learn. And we have almost meetings every other day where you can ask questions, dive in and get deeper help and stuff, and ideally not get stuck and be able to build whatever kind of multiplayer stuff that you want. So if you're interested in that, check out the link below. And if you're not, that's fine. Just hit the thumbs up button, and in the comments, let me know what kind of stuff you are interested in.